I'm really glad you explained that. I know you have this quote that like the old inbound playbook is broken. So I feel like you really explained what you meant by that. And I also questioned what was going on, how all of those silos were created within different corporations. Cause it's okay, we'll do this part of it and then we'll hand it off to you. And then you do this part of it. And then eventually somewhere down the line, there's actually going to be a conversion and money exchanging hands. So I get that. And I appreciate the
Yes.
explanation because I really have struggled with that for a while. Even my talk when we were competing for SEO week, that spot on the stage,
Yes.
it was really just about like, why is there so much of the passing the buck, passing the baton, even when like shifting the responsibilities from the top down, I can see the shared responsibility. Now I feel like that's being exposed. Can you explain the signals that tell you that the stakes have changed and how you're dealing with it in your daily practice or current methodologies?
Right? That's the big question is what do we do now? And I kind of had that oh no moment of like, okay, how am I going to keep my job? How am I going to keep in this profession? What are we going to do now that the traffic's gone? And I started to like kind of be like, as a joke, being like, hey, we just need to throw a funeral for all that inbound traffic we used to get. Let's look at what actually converted, right? So let's look at that inbound traffic, what actually converted into sales to lessen the blow. Okay, so that was not actually converting. So now what are we going to do? And death to inbound marketing is what I've been joking about as well. It's dying. We got to throw a funeral. It's the death of inbound marketing. We're going to have to change the way we write content. We're going to have to change the way, what purpose of it does in our metrics. And the metrics is always a big thing. What are we going to track? And especially with AI being so new, it's so hard to track right now. And so for me, it's figuring out how do we figure out what your visibility is and if your visibility is increasing. A few different ways. We now have the Bing AI report, right? That has grounding queries and your actual URLs that have been pinged. That's fantastic. So that's some real data we could usually use. Of course, we know that's just a piece of it since there's so many different LLMs and different, AI surfaces. Google says they're incorporating it all in Google Search Console, but we did find out that a couple months ago, that they're not using any of the grounding queries. So none of that information, they're stripping that out. And so they're stripping out the actual grounding queries or the creeps of grounding right now. So none of that information is in there for us to know what people are actually searching or to do our prompt research, right? Like we would do keyword research. So that's a big bummer. And then, AI tracking tools, they're working on it. There's a lot of really great companies, people doing really exciting things, but there's just the idea of, my position is there's no static SERP. So how do we get a large enough data set to make it an actually valid statistical number that we can get directional data? It's going to be really tough because we were used to getting so much data and our clients were used to getting so much data and our bosses and C-levels were used to getting so much data. I've tried to wean them off the data. And I think I came up with it the other day, how I'm going to try to start phrasing it. And it really kind of makes sense in my brain is SEO, right? Traditional search is about traffic, right? Rankings and traffic, where AI search is going to be about visibility. And that's how do we see how visible we are? How often are those bots coming? Benchmarking how they're coming if we have more. And then conversions, because that's what we can actually track and make it two separate things in their brains.
I think that's a great point. Like anytime we're talking about conversions, yes, let's hang out there. But even to go back to, the very beginning when you said making the shift was now like finding out what is actually converting. How do you go back in the data that you've collected previously to determine what was actually converting so that you can double down on that?
Oh, so Google Analytics. Some people have internal CRMs, Shopify, some people do it through that. I'm a Google Analytics girly. You can go back into your Google Analytics and look at it by URL and channels. So you go and filter it by organic search, right? And then go to landing page report and then pick your date. And it'll tell you everything. And you can see it all the way down to your key events. So your Google Analytics does need to be set up. If you need any help with that, I suggest going to Dana DiTomaso or Bree Anderson's websites. They both are amazing at that. And they have great tutorials. And they set it up, and then you can actually see all that data. The first thing I thought of, being me, with the whole idea of how we're going to keep our jobs, I live in a little bit of a panic state, as you can tell, was what are they going to say when you walk in and you go, oh, hey, well, this has all changed. So what we've been doing, we're now going to go all the way over to this. They're going to say, well, what was I paying you for the last 5 years? None of this was converting. What was I paying you for? My first idea was, okay, well, we can all get together and switch jobs and then blame it on the other person, right? So let's get a support group, right? hurry up and quick switch jobs and be like, well, they were blah, 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 because they were gone, right? We can all, throw each other under the bus, as a unified sort of, secret society. As fun as that would be, I know, right? As fun as that would be, wish we
That's
could,
awesome.
right? I think what we're going to have to do is go, well, our job used to get you this. Our job used to get you these sessions, but that's no longer an opportunity. So now we're going to have to expand and we're going to have to work with the conversion rate optimization team or become a conversion rate optimization team. That's how we're going to be able to expand, our role. That's how we're going to be able to earn money. That's how we're going to be able to bridge that gap. And same like with branding, we're probably going to be getting into branding. Either we're going to be working with that team and building personas with our content team, or we're going to be, that person who does that now as an SEO, AEO, GEO, search, organic traffic, right? Whatever we want to call ourselves. This week I'm calling myself an AI visibility strategist. Everything's in flux right now when it comes to it. But yeah, I feel that's kind of how things are shifting and where I see opportunities for growth, not only like job security, but growth in our industry.
It's so funny that you said that because I just changed my name to visibility strategist on LinkedIn this last weekend. So it's funny that you said that. It's so crazy. What you did there was very honest. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool because I bet there's a lot of people who are afraid to communicate that. The fact that, oh, we have been investing in this thing, but now we've got to completely switch because the way that search will be done going forward, there's no like ramp down period. It's not happening. It's happened. Like we're in the midst of the change now. So that is such a hard conversation being had in so many boardrooms or Zoom meetings across the country.
Yeah. Everybody's asking it. I'm asking myself, it's like, how are we going to explain these things? How are we going to do these things? And I'm really good at identifying the problems in my world, but not always with the solutions. It always takes longer, right? So my biggest challenge right now is trying to explain strategy and tactics when we don't have 10 years worth of proof. When people are like, well, that's not verified by Google. Well, that's not blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not this. There's been no testing on this. Well, of course, there's been no testing on this. It's a brand new tool that changes every 2 weeks. It's trying to go from SEO was this way. We had all these tests. We had all these case studies, right? We had all this documentation from Google. We had all these solid, concrete things that we could use, right? And point back to. And experts that were like, they're an expert in the field for the last 20 years and they've done this. And so that's why I believe them. And you should believe me, when I say stuff by them. That's not there. And so it's a lot of like, well, what can we do right now that we know that works? Well, we don't have anything that we know that works 100%, right? We do know you still need foundational SEO. So make sure you got that tight. Everything else, we're going to have to just, you need somebody who's interested in being on the cutting edge. You need somebody who's interested in testing. You need to be willing to test and you need to be flexible and agile. It's funny because you're like, what about the investment? And the first thing I went was like, oh, we're trying to convince people to make investments in AI search and AI visibility when we don't know exactly concrete what's going to work. That's my challenge this week. We'll see what next week brings.
Yeah. Well, and it's the fact that SEO as a practice, like you said, was segmented. It had its little place, but now discovery is happening. AI Answers, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, podcasts, communities, recommendations, Quora, Reddit. People are searching differently. People are changing in how they discover brands. And so that to me seems like it could be an opportunity of, okay, what has actually changed in like some of the industries that you worked with and like how people are discovering brands.
TikTok has changed the entire world for e-commerce. Anybody in e-commerce knows that. To take another tin hat theory sort of idea. If we have time for lots of speculation station, I feel like TikTok Shop did such a good job that's why they were trying to pretty much shut it down, is because it was conferring with Amazon. And they were like, oh no, because TikTok Shop took over the world, especially during quarantine here in the US. And everybody knows that's like now a major selling. Where it used to be, right? It used to be with social. So you make a piece of content for inbound marketing, right? And then you would redistribute it everywhere. So then you would post it on social and you would talk about it on your Instagram. And you might make a video for YouTube with that one piece of content that you made and you would redistribute it that way. Where now it's you making a post on TikTok. That's where you're making the content and you put your store link at the bottom and people buy directly there right then. And so we're seeing a lot shorter sort of, which is great for e-commerce, right? Like if you could get somebody to come in directly off of a 30-second TikTok, that's going to be a lot better than trying to spend $500 or 2 weeks writing a blog post and doing the research and then trying to redistribute it and all the time it takes and the tool it takes to do those automatic posts or what have you. So I think when it comes like to the big change as far as it's going to go for our search. Like there's the search everywhere. People are calling that, instead of SEO being search engine optimization, the search everywhere optimization is a way people can go. There's integration you can do with the other teams. I think too, to really keep in mind, like I feel like this happened when we first got social media and companies were like, oh, it's not the same anymore. People just aren't going online. They're actually going and they're getting information from social media. And that's when we saw influencer marketing come out, right? We saw social media ads come out. And then people got into, oh, hey, I do, YouTube SEO and I do Reddit SEO and different branches. So I feel like it's going to just morph and sort of change in its own natural way, the way that day. If anybody's an oldie like me can remember the old days, but we are going to see some more of that direct lines opportunities open up for e-commerce, which is great.
So how did that change at that time? It sounds like those platforms gave birth to a form of SEO versus SEO encompassing all of it. I feel like GEO and AI search is swallowing it in a way, not just creating like another thing to pay for, but just like eating it.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it is eating it because we're going to be eating everything because there's so many levers and different things that you need to do in order to get into that AI answer. And it's just for visibility, right? It's just for that brand lift. A lot of times there are clicks outs, but nothing like there is an organic search. So, that's such a tough one. It is kind of eating it. I feel like though inside our industry, you're going to start finding specialists. I specialize in Reddit for AI search. I specialize in citations, so people that were like, I'm off-page backlink specialist in SEO, or I do digital PR in SEO. Those were two different separate things in the SEO field that you could have. And I feel like we're going to start seeing that. Like, oh, hi, I do citations only, and I specialize in citations from Reddit. Now that's making very, very niche inside of there. But I think that's what we're going to start seeing is people coming up with different niche avenues that they can go into and specialties that they can find. As far as getting a 9-to-5 or offering a service for e-commerce, like Shopify, like you, hey, I'm a small business owner, right? I have an Etsy shop, and now there's 5 million more things that looks like I need to do, or how's that going to happen for me? My number one suggestion would be look at the agentic SEO. Pay attention to what the agentic SEO is and figure out how you can get your products into Google Gemini and ChatGPT where people can buy them directly. If that means getting a Stripe account, start looking into seeing that. I know that's a big one. If that means figuring out how to do their product feed, start doing that, start working on those sort of things. Because I kind of feel when it comes to the small business owners that are doing the Etsy shops that are doing that, that's going to be sort of the next avenue that they're going to see that's going to be worth their money and time. Because they're small business owners, they don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of money, they're not in a corporate, right? They're not doing enterprise size anything. They're not getting paid by an agency, they're not the agency. And so what can I do at home by myself in my half an hour after dinner is where you kind of have that sort of minute of this is going to have the most payoff, I feel, in the future.
So if we can't get that particular click, but somebody finds an answer to a question that they have, it references our website, how do we know that our marketing's even working? Is that something we should just stop doing?
All the tough questions. So that's another thing is we're losing all of those metrics we used to get. So it used to be, like I said, CRMs, we had Google Analytics, we had Google Search Console, we had all these things where we could see the client journey. Cookies, right? Followed them everywhere. And we could start seeing all these funnels and all these journeys. We're getting a lot less data. And so we're going to have to just start doing the best with what we've got. And I honestly, for right now, kind of believe we're going to have to go back to the old days before we had all that technology that followed the customer all over the internet. Because there's privacy, people are taking out, third parties. There's all sorts of stuff going on where we're going to have to just be a lot more correlation, which I know even I say it and I'm like, because we hate that, right? You hated it, and it's going to have to be like, hey, we did this for a larger company. Hey, we did this piece of content. We know from our AI tracking, right, or organic queries that we started to get, more visibility on that topic. And we know from our Google Search Console, and we know from the AI report that that URL started to get more pings, right? It started to get more traffic to them. And from there, we saw our branded searches go up this much because they left and now they did a branded search after they left that sort of visit. Or we saw our sales go up on the product at that article was about. So it's going to be a lot more correlation, I think, based in the future, which is horrible for us who want to prove our work or want to see what's working and not working, right? And we want to get into the data because the data is just not going to be there as much. I know.
Yeah.